The UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon says the convoy carrying the UN's head of mission to Syria was attacked on Sunday. Only its heavy armour saved the occupants from injury, Mr. Ban's office said. Not so lucky are the victims of the government forces' attack on the city of Aleppo, which has become the focal point for the Free Syrian Army's fight. In a BBC correspondent's account from inside the city, much of the fighting is being done with small arms, fighter against fighter, man by man. Yet civilians are being caught up in it too, and tonight we'll hear about the care of the wounded from the Red Cross. Well, the Prime Minister has welcomed the resignation of Syria's most senior diplomat in London, the Chargé d'Affaires, Khalid Al-Ayoubi. The Prime Minister said it was another blow to President Assad and what he described as his cronies in Damascus. The Foreign Office says Mr. Al-Ayoubi and his family are now in a secure location in the United Kingdom. Well, someone for whom this is bound to be interesting news is President Assad's cousin, Ribal Al-Assad, who is in London and heads the Organisation for Democracy and Freedom in Syria. As you can tell, he's no sympathiser of the Syrian government. Hello, Mr. Al-Assad.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Morning. Tell us about this defection. Can you tell us any more about Mr. Al-Ayoubi now and what it was that made him go?
Well, to be honest, I don't think it's such a significance that Mr. Al-Ayoubi has resigned, but it is, of course, we welcome it. Nobody has heard, we haven't heard of Mr. Al-Ayoubi before. There was, as you know, Ambassador Al-Khiyami was here and who has left, back to Syria a couple of months ago. But it is, again, people from all around, as we could see lately, are not accepting the violence, that the regime is using excessive force, actually, as you can see from Damascus and Aleppo, Homs, and other areas in Syria, which is, it will be, I think we're going to start seeing a lot, more and more of those diplomats who will not be, and people from inside Syria who will not be accepting this kind of violence.
We are hearing of a lot of force being used against Aleppo. One report says that 2 shells a minute were falling there yesterday. Can they keep that up? Can the government forces really continue to attack a city?
I have been warning from that. Since the beginning, I have been warning that the opposition should not carry arms. If the opposition had not carried arms and could have continued to demonstrate peacefully against the regime, this regime would have not been able to stay more than for a few months in power. But unfortunately, as you know, a lot of people got armed, as we have heard lately, from CNN and other reports from the 2 journalists who got released, that there are a lot of Al-Qaeda members, a lot of foreign fighters in Syria. And honestly, we are heading towards a full-out civil war, and this is very dangerous. I've been warning from it, now for 17 months. And this could lead easily to a regional war, as you have seen lately what Iran has said, what Hezbollah has said in Lebanon, what Iraq has said, the Russian ships, in the Mediterranean. We've heard lately reports yesterday that Chinese ships are heading there. So I think it's becoming very, very, very dangerous. And as Kofi Annan, of course, and Ban Ki-moon have said yesterday that it's very important to stop all kind of violence, and the international community should come together to persuade the parties that only a political transition leading to a political settlement will resolve this crisis. That's the only way forward.
How do you do that, though? How do you persuade a man with a gun, who'd just seen his brother being shot in the leg by a sniper? It
is very difficult. But do we have? We have 2 choices. It's either it's a full-out civil war and a regional war, of course, where we will see, instead of seeing now, until now maybe 17,000, 18,000 dead, unfortunately, we're going to see hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of dead, as it happened in Iraq. We certainly don't want to see that. We have a choice to make. It's either we have to try really to bite on our, injuries and try to say let's work together. Let's forget about. We cannot build the future of our country with grudges and hatred. We have to do our best to be able to come together and build the future of our country together. We have to have an all-inclusive, democratic transitional change to democracy. That's the only way forward. It's very difficult. I know that, but there's no way out. It's either that or a full-out civil war and regional war.
We're learning now from Ban Ki-moon's office that the head of the UN mission was attacked yesterday. His convoy was attacked.
Yes.
Do you think that the UN mission has a place still in Syria in the present climate?
Of course, we have to. I said it's very slim, it's a chance that we have, but we have to grab onto it. We have to really have to support the Kofi Annan mission. We have to support the UN presence in Syria, and we have to help, from the international community, including, the U.S. and other countries. We should not agree on the Kofi Annan plan and then give the green light to countries like, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey to arm, the opposition and send them. This goes completely against the Kofi Annan plan.
Who is giving that green light, do you think? In your opinion, who's covertly approving this support from Turkey and Saudi Arabia?
I honestly think that, unfortunately, the U.S. has, subcontracted the Syrian issue to Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar, who are the ones who have, a week after the Kofi Annan plan was approved, a week later, they have, met at the Friend of Syria meeting in Turkey, and they have funded, they have, agreed to fund the Syrian opposition, as we have heard at that time, the Saudi foreign minister who said, we need to arm the opposition, I think they got $100 million for them. Well, this didn't. It's really doing everything against the principle of the Kofi Annan plan. You cannot agree on something which says all sides have to stop the fighting, all sides have to stop to be armed, and then go ahead and arm the opposition. And this is also, you're never going to get the Russians and Chinese on board if this continues. And this is why the Russian and Chinese now are siding with the regime, not because they are with the regime and they've said it, but because they do not think that this is conducive. It's not going to be productive neither.
Do you think that the Russian case in particular has been getting fair coverage from the international media?
I honestly don't think so. I think until now, I don't know. Of course, it has to do with their own national interest, but we are giving, the West is giving them ammunitions to use, and say, we are, you cannot blame us for arming the regime while, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other countries are arming and training the Syrian opposition and other foreign fighters and sending them to Syria. You see, it has to be from both sides. The international community has to work together to implement so that the Kofi Annan plan could work.
So what would you like to see? I know it's, as you say, slim chances, 11th hour and all that stuff. What would you like to see happen at international level?
The most important thing is that, first of all, we have to unify the opposition. The opposition is still fragmented. It's still, they're fighting for position, and for each one is fighting just to, to get back, and they think that there will be a foreign intervention, that the same way it's happened in Libya, and that they will be, replacing the actual government. Well, this is wrong. We have to fight now for the future of our country. We shouldn't look now at who's going to be in power and who's going to replace that regime. The most important thing is how we're going to stop the fight, how we're going to stop a full-out civil war, how we're going to be able to form a national unity government, and how we're all going to work together to have an all-inclusive, opposition and all-inclusive government. If the opposition is still fragmented, they do not agree to sit together. For example, the Syrian National Council is 80% made of the members of the Muslim Brotherhood. And this is not, I'm not saying that members of the SNC, like Dr. Kamal Lebwani, who's a prominent Syrian opposition leader, and he left the SNC and said that this is, they are worse than the regime. This is a theocratic group, and we don't want to replace a democracy in Syria with a theocracy. And this is what most people in Syria think. Most people in Syria are not with the regime. Most people in Syria have suffered 40 years under that regime, but certainly they are all wishing and dreaming of a democracy such as we have in the West, and certainly not to replace a dictatorship with a theocracy like it happened in Iran 30 years ago. Nobody wants to see that.
Mr. Al-Assad, thank you very much for talking to us. I hope you'll come back again.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.